You're not gonna believe how one ordinary afternoon changed a little girl's entire life. A little black girl, maybe 9 or 10 years old, steps off a city bus in her neat little dress and pink sneakers, clutching a note her mom wrote for her. She's supposed to pick up a visiting relative from the station because her mom couldn't leave work. But what she doesn't know is that the man she's about to meet isn't her cousin. He's a billionaire. And what happens between them that day changes everything for both of them. Let me tell you this story because it'll remind you that life has a way of putting the right people in your path exactly when you need them the most. Her name was Nia, a bright, polite little girl with big brown eyes and a backpack full of coloring books. Her mom, Tamara, was a single mother working double shifts at a hospital, doing everything she could to make ends meet. That morning, Tamara got a call. Her cousin was coming into town on the afternoon train, and she promised she'd pick him up. But halfway through her shift, an emergency came in, and she couldn't leave. So, she wrote Nia a note with instructions, handed her a few dollars for bus fare, and said, "Baby, just wait by the benches. He'll recognize you. And don't talk to strangers." So, there she was, little Nia standing at the crowded train station, holding a small sign that said Uncle D. She waited quietly, watching passengers hurry past with their luggage, couples greeting each other with hugs, kids running to grandparents. She looked around, scanning every face, but no one looked familiar. At the same time, across the station, a man named Derek Langston had just stepped off the first-class train car. Derek wasn't just any man. He was one of the most successful tech billionaires in the country. But lately, he'd been running from his own emptiness. His marriage had fallen apart, his company was under pressure, and he'd lost touch with his only son. That day, he came to the city unannounced, wanting a break from the noise. He dressed simply, no expensive suit, just jeans, a hoodie, and a baseball cap pulled low. For once, he wanted to feel invisible. As he walked through the station, he noticed a little girl standing all by herself, holding a sign with tiny handwriting. People walked past her without a second glance. But something about her focus, her calm, her quiet confidence, made him stop. He approached slowly, trying not to startle her. "Hey there," he said gently. "You lost?" Nia looked up, cautious but polite. "No, sir. I'm waiting for my uncle. My mom said he'd be here soon." She held up her sign proudly. Derek smiled. "You sure you're okay? Shouldn't someone be here with you?" "She couldn't come," Nia said matter-of-factly. "She's working. She's a nurse. She helps people." That made him smile wider. "Sounds like your mom's a hero." Nia nodded seriously. "She is." Something in that answer hit Derek right in the chest. It had been years since anyone spoke with that kind of pure pride. He offered to sit with her until her uncle arrived, just to make sure she was safe. She hesitated for a second, then nodded, trusting his kind tone. As they sat on the bench, Nia pulled out a small notebook and started sketching. Derek leaned slightly to see. "You draw?" She nodded again. "I like drawing buildings. My mom says one day I could be an architect." She flipped the page to show him a drawing. A big, beautiful hospital with flowers in front and the word, Tamara's Clinic, written across the top. "I want to build this for my mom one day, so she doesn't have to work so much." Derek's throat tightened. That small sketch hit him harder than any business deal ever had. "That's incredible," he said softly. "You're really talented." "Thank you," Nia said politely, then squinted at him. "What do you do?" He smiled faintly. "I build things too. Not buildings, though, more like computers and programs." Her eyes lit up. "So you're smart." He laughed. "Something like that." For a while, they just talked. About art, about school, about her mom. Derek found himself laughing. Actually laughing, for the first time in months. Then, out of nowhere, Nia's stomach growled. She looked embarrassed, pulling her bag closer. "Sorry," she whispered. "I skipped lunch." Without hesitation, Derek stood up. "Come on," he said. "There's a cafe over there. Let's get something to eat while we wait for your uncle." She shook her head quickly. "I'm not supposed to go anywhere with strangers." He respected that immediately. "You're right. How about this? We sit right here, and I'll get the food and bring it back. What do you want?" "Sandwich. Juice." She hesitated, then whispered, "Peanut butter, if they have it." A few minutes later, Derek came back with a sandwich, juice, and even a cookie. She tried to refuse the cookie, but he grinned and said, "Trust me, it's on me." As she ate, he looked at her tiny hands holding the food. The way she smiled softly after every bite. It broke something open inside him. He thought about his own son, who hadn't spoken to him in over a year. How did he let life get so far away from what mattered? Then came the twist. A man in his 20s suddenly rushed toward them, waving. "Nia, sorry I'm late." He hugged her tight, then looked at Derek suspiciously. "Who are you?" Nia smiled. "This is Mr. Derek. He kept me company while I waited." The man relaxed, shaking his hand. "Thanks, man. Appreciate you watching out for her." Derek smiled. "She's a special kid. You've got a great family." As they walked away, Nia turned and waved. "Bye, Mr. Derek." He waved back, but couldn't shake the feeling that he wasn't done with that little girl's story. That night, he couldn't sleep. Her drawing haunted him, that hospital with her mom's name on it. He kept seeing the pride in her eyes. By morning, he made a decision. He called one of his assistants and said, "Find me a nurse named Tamara Brooks. She works at a city hospital." Within a few hours, he had her file. A hardworking single mother, spotless record, long shifts, barely making enough to get by. He didn't want to embarrass her or show up as some savior, but he wanted to help. Quietly. A week later, Tamara was called into the hospital director's office. She thought she was in trouble, but instead, the director handed her a letter. It said, "Your dedication inspires more people than you'll ever know. This grant has been created in your honor to support healthcare workers who give everything to others. Use it however your heart leads." Attached was a check for $50,000. Tamara burst into tears. She had no idea where it came from. That evening, she went home to find Nia coloring at the table. "Baby," she whispered, still shaken, "someone sent us a blessing." She showed her the letter, and Nia smiled so wide her cheeks dimpled. "Maybe it's from that nice man at the station." Tamara froze. "What man?" Nia explained everything. How she met a kind stranger, how he bought her lunch, how they talked about dreams. Tamara's heart pounded, half terrified, half grateful. "You shouldn't have talked to strangers, sweetheart," she said, hugging her tight. "But I'm glad he was kind." A few days later, a package arrived, a large tube. Inside was a framed printout of Nia's drawing of Tamara's clinic. But this time, it was redrawn digitally, professionally rendered with architectural precision. At the bottom, in small writing, it said, "Never stop building your dreams, DL." Years passed, and that one encounter grew into something extraordinary. Derek never revealed who he was publicly, but he stayed in touch from afar, quietly funding programs for young Black girls in engineering and architecture under a foundation named after Nia. By the time she turned 18, Nia received a full scholarship to study architecture, funded anonymously by the same foundation. Only when she graduated did she learn the truth. At the ceremony, the dean announced, "This scholarship was made possible by Mr. Derek Langston." Nia's jaw dropped. The same man who'd once shared a peanut butter sandwich with her had changed the course of her entire life. After the ceremony, Derek approached her, older now, but still warm-eyed. She smiled through tears. "You kept your promise," she whispered. He smiled back. "No, Nia. You did. You built it." Years later, she opened her own architectural firm, and the first project she completed was a clinic named Tamara's Place. And that, right there, is what I mean when I say you never know who's watching your story. You never know when one act of kindness, one small moment, could set off a ripple that changes a life. Because sometimes the most powerful connections aren't built on money, fame, or power. They're built on heart. If this story touched you, hit that like button right now and subscribe to Black Visionaries for more stories that celebrate strength, faith, and the magic in everyday moments. Because you never know when your story might be the one that changes someone else's life forever.